Hello and welcome everyone to the first recording of a series of screencasts about mobile app development. In this screencast, I'll show how to build an iOS app that connects to a server using REST and JSON. For the client side, we'll be using Xcode, CocoaPods, and RESTKit. And on the server side, we'll be using Spring, and with that Spring Roo, Hibernate, MySQL, and we'll host it on Amazon Web Services. So within this first part, we'll only cover the server side. The client side will be covered in later parts. So within this part, the server that we're building is not specific to any mobile app, since it will just be a generic server using Spring and Roo. And the aim of this part is just to get some JSON data to the client side using REST calls. So first off, we'll start with Spring STS, which is a version of Eclipse. Hopefully you're all familiar with that. It's built specifically for building Spring applications. So we'll get started by creating a new application, which is going to be a Spring Roo project. What we're creating here is a pizza delivering app, so we'll name it Pizza Delivery. And we want it to be a WAR project. Click Finish. And here we have our project. Hopefully you have a little bit of experience with Spring Roo. I'm not going to into too much detail about this. I'll just show you how to create this project now. First off, we'll set up the persistency provider, which is going to be Hibernate, and we'll be using a MySQL database. Now, I've already set up a database right here. You can see the schema name is pizza. So, as you can see here, Spring created some files for us, and here we have to set it to that schema and fill in some details. Also, since we don't want Hibernate to recreate our database each time, I'm going to change this policy to update. Now, our first entity is going to be a pizza entity, which is going into the top level and then domain package. And Spring Roo will also create some test classes for us. There we go. And we're going to add a field to it, which we're going to call diameter, to determine the size of the pizza. So right here we can now see our pizza class, and also we can see that it has been annotated with some Roo annotations. Now what we don't see here is actually the aspects that are created by Spring Roo. We would like to see them, so we go into filters and then deselect this one. There we go. So the most important aspects that are created are the entity, which will tell our persistency layer that this is actually an entity stored in our database. And here the active record, which will allow us to access our data. and the Java bean, which created getters and setters for our properties. Now, instead of creating fields in the Roo shell here, we can also just simply add them here. I'll add a price property here, and then we can already see here in the console that it will automatically update our Java bean, and here we see now price getters and setters. Next thing we're going to do is set up our controllers. This will set up our web context. And the next one is going to set up a controller for our domain class. We'll put that in the web package. Here we can now see our controller, and we can also see classes that are generated. Here we see a lot of controller methods nicely created for us. So right here we do see a exclamation mark, so let's see what that's about. We'll open the problems view. And here we can see that it's missing one of the source folders, which we'll just manually add. There we go, problem is resolved. Now to start our app, we'll drag it into the server, start the server, and our application should be running. Let's have a look, open the home page, and this page is automatically generated by Roo. Here we can create new pizza entities and also list all the pizza entities. And this also will confirm that the database connection is correct. Otherwise we'd get an error here. So let's go create a new pizza. Set the properties, save it, and everything looks fine. Now of course, for our mobile app, this is all useless. So later on we'll actually remove these normal controllers. But for now, let's just keep them because they make it easy to enter data. What we do want for our mobile app is to have a controller that returns JSON responses. Also, this is very easy with Spring Roo. You can just say JSON all, and what it will do is it will add the Roo JSON annotation here, and it generates an aspect that contains methods to serialize and deserialize a pizza entity. So that's only one part though. We also need to create the controllers, and that's done through the following command. And in our pizza controller we see a Roo web JSON added for our pizza class, and we can see the aspect that has been generated. So here are all the methods for post, delete, put, and of course get to get our pizza in JSON. So let's see if this works. We're going to use a program called REST client for this. Just going to do a simple request. that should give us all the pizzas. There we go. And here now we have JSON data. Now as you can see here, we just create a simple command here and it will return us JSON. However, if we go to our web browser and we do the same URL, then we don't get JSON, but a web. That's because this web browser will send a standard header that it wants HTML back, text HTML, and our REST client doesn't send any headers, and in that case Spring will by default return JSON data. However, what we should actually do is set our header, which is the accept header of application JSON. This is where we specify the header. We add it, and now we have the correct request. So far we have very easily set up a server that already stores data to the database and gets it over REST and JSON calls. I'll put all the URLs to the tools in the video description, and you can find the source code of this project on my blog.